Hello, this is Patrick at OneCNC West, and what we're going to do in this training video is finish applying toolpath to our part using OneCNC Mill Advantage. Now, we finished applying all the toolpath to side 1. In this video, we're going to take a look at flipping the part over and applying the toolpath to side 2. All right, let's get started. Now, if we head over to the NC Manager, you're going to notice that all the machining operations are stored within a toolpath group. By default, this toolpath group is called toolpath group number 1. Toolpath groups can perform many functions. For example, you can generate CNC code, create a setup sheet, simulate and preview toolpath. In fact, there's many different functions that can be accomplished by a toolpath group. In this example, I want you to think of the toolpath group as a setup out there on the machine tool. If you'll remember, we performed all of these machining operations when the part was held by a vise. In this video, we're going to flip the part over, secure it with soft jaws, and apply the remaining toolpath. But before we do that, I want to show you something. You can rename your toolpath group if you'd like just by double-clicking. Once you double-click, if you come over to this parameter right here where it says description, you can name this anything that you'd like. I'm going to call this setup-vise. Just like that. Very good. So we'll click OK. And now you'll notice over here within the NC Manager, the toolpath group is now called setup vise. Now, when we flip the part over and apply toolpath to the other side, we're going to need to generate a completely separate CNC program. So to accomplish this, we're going to create a brand new toolpath group. All we need to do is take our cursor into the NC Manager, right-hand mouse click, and select New Group. From there, just like before, we can rename this by double-clicking, and then within the description parameter, type in a new name. I'm going to call this new toolpath group Setup Soft Jaws. I think that looks good, so I'll click OK on that. All right, so now that we have our new toolpath group created, we can start applying our new machining operations to the second side. Now, we need to tell OneCNC that we're going to be flipping the part. In fact, we're going to be using a brand new construction plane, a construction plane that we created in an earlier video. So to do this, we're going to head up to the top of the NC Manager, and we're going to select the option called Set Machining Axis. Simply just left-click this. From here, we want to select the option called 3-axis repositioned. Once we do that, we can click OK. The next thing we need to do is we need to select that construction plane that we created earlier. We're going to head down to the lower left-hand corner, select our construction plane tools, and from there, we're going to select the construction plane called Side 2. Once we do that, we can click Close. Now, for the first machining operation, let's head over to the Command Manager and select Stock Toolpaths. From there, we're going to use the Facing operation. So I'm going to left-click that. And the first thing we need to do is select the boundary for our stock. I'm just going to take my cursor anywhere on the stock boundary and simply left-hand click. When I'm done, I can right-hand mouse click. The first thing we need to do is to define a tool. We can define a tool manually, or we can select one from the tool library. In this example, I'm going to be selecting a tool from the tool library. So I'm going to left-click on the tool graphic. From there, I'm going to select the Library tab. I'm going to select the Facing category, and from there, I'm going to select the 2-inch face mill. Once we've done that, I'll click OK. Now, this is going to be in turret position number 1. I'm going to adjust the RPM. I'm going to up that to 1100. I'm happy with the feed rate. All this looks good down here, so we'll click Next. Our clearance parameters look fine. Notice how the top of the part's at Z0, and the final Z depth for our toolpath is also going to be 0. I'm going to click Next on that. Now, for the facing parameters, I'm going to use an approach distance of 110% of the tool radius. This is simply where the tool approaches the geometry. It's going to stay away from our stock boundary 110% of the tool radius. For the overlap amount, I'm using 50% of the tool radius. The overlap amount is how far the tool overlaps the boundary of the stock as it repositions from one pass to the next pass. For toolpath angle, I'm using 0. A toolpath angle of 0 means toolpath will be generated parallel to the x-axis. For tool step over amount, I'm going to use 75% of the tool diameter. And for the toolpath style, I'm going to use zigzag. Let's click Finished and let OneCNC generate the toolpath. You'll notice that the new machining operation has been added to our brand new toolpath group called Soft Jaws. Notice there's a little arrow here to the left of our machining operation. This reminds us that the part has been repositioned and we're now applying toolpath to a different side of the part. Excellent. All right, let's apply our next toolpath. Let's head back over to the command manager and let's use a pocketing operation to rough out the pocket. I'm going to take my cursor, going to left-hand mouse click on the pocket boundary and then right-hand mouse click. For this tool, I'm also going to select a tool from the tool library. So I can either click Tool Changer or simply left-click the tool graphic. I'm going to go back into Library, going to use the category called End Mill, and for this, I'm going to be using an inch diameter high-speed end mill. That looks great, so let's click OK to that. This tool is going to be in turret position number 2. Again, I'm going to round out the spindle speed. I'm going to make that 1500. Our feed rates look fine. Let's click Next on this. All of our clearance values look great, but I do need to change the final Z. This is the final Z depth of the toolpath. Now you can type in a number, or if you click the option called Pick Z, the menu will disappear and you can take your cursor and simply left click any vertice at the bottom of the pocket. So I'm going to left click. Once I do that, OneCNC extrapolates that Z depth and pushes it inside where it says Final Z. Very good. Let's click Next on that. I'm going to be using high speed closed as the machining style. We'll click Next on that. I'm going to ramp zigzag into the pocket with the default angle of 3 degrees. Let's click Next on that. For step over, I'm using 75% of the tool diameter. I'm not going to take different depths of cut. I'm going to cut all this in one pass. Leave on sides, 20 thousandths. I'll use the default tolerance of 2/10. Let's click Next on that. And then for finishing, I'm going to say none, and that's because I don't need an extra finish pass. And that's because I'm not going to be using the same tool to perform the finish pass. Let's click Finished and let OneCNC generate the toolpath. And just like before, our machining operation has been applied to our new toolpath group, Soft Jaws. Notice how there's not an arrow in front of this machining operation, and that's because the part's already been repositioned. Now let's perform a mill profile basic machining operation to finish the sides of the pocket. I'm going to take my cursor, I'm going to left click where I want the tool to start. Now with these 4 arrows, I need to determine the side and direction. I want a climb cut on the inside, so I'm going to left-hand mouse click. You'll notice now that the cursor changes to the word end. It wants us to select the end of the geometry that we want to profile. I could take my cursor and left click right here at the end of that arc, but as a shortcut, you can hit the F3 key on the keyboard and that will select the rest of the geometry. I'm going to right-hand mouse click. And just like before, the very first thing we need to do is select a tool. In this example, I've already selected a tool from the tool library. Turret position number 3. I'm going to round down the RPM to 4,000. Our feed rates look great. Using a 3/8 diameter end mill for this. We'll click Next. Our clearances and depth of cut look good, so we're going to click Next on that. We don't need to ramp profile this. We're just going to use cut levels. Going to click Next on that. We don't need to worry about the auto step over. We're not taking multiple depths of cut. Leave on sides set to 0 because this is going to be a finish pass. There is no wall taper, so we don't need to be concerned about the wall taper. We'll click Next. We don't need an extra finish pass. We'll click Next on that. And for our lead in and lead out, I'm using the line arc strategy. I'm going to arc into the profile using a 200 thousandths arc, and the arc is going to push through 45 degrees. Notice how my exit values are exactly the same. Let's click Finished and let OneCNC generate the toolpath. Very good. Now let's simulate all of our toolpath. To do this, take your cursor and right-click on any toolpath group. And instead of selecting Simulate Rest, we're going to use the option called Simulate All. Simulate All simply means simulate all the toolpath groups. So let's select Simulate All. We're going to be picking this rectangular boundary for the stock. The top of the stock is going to be at Z0, bottom of the stock at -1 inch 500 thousandths. Let's click OK, take our cursor, click anywhere on the stock boundary, and then right-hand mouse click. All right, so here we go. Here is the toolpath simulation for the first side. This is our roughing operation. Going to change tools to the ball end mill. Going to speed this up a little bit. We're machining the top of that boss. Then we're going to use the Z-level finish command to finish the sides of the boss. I'm going to slow this down right about here. Change tools to a taper tool. Profile the boss. Now we're drilling the holes. This is simulating us repositioning the part and then placing the part in soft jaws. There's our facing operation, our roughing operation, and there's our finish profile operation. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.